giant scissors, and he was just going, that's it. That's the shot. That's it. 23 frames. It took me 7 days to get it approved. And they kept going, oh, let's do the head first. Let's start the take with the head, but then follow the arm. Okay, no, scrap that. Let's do the arms first and then the head. Client want the Pixar quality for the price of
the very small ones.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's just about it's a matter of how tight are we talking, and where can I cut, and how open-minded all the way through, and only when I need to be a dictator, I will dictate and I will say why. I just have to follow it why. Otherwise, I would leave my artist with a very bad taste in their mouth, you know. And so the difference is right now is I have that. I don't have to answer to anybody. I have to justify my decision and justify my vision. When I am an animator or an animation supervisor, I am still at the service of somebody else's vision. I'm still in charge of raising somebody else's baby. And that's, to me, that's a big difference. And that's more what I want it to be for a while, you know, that. Oh my dude. This is a whole, do you have enough time? Because I really don't care. I'm hanging down.
Go on. And welcome to Prolific Perspectives. This is Kamal Hassan, your host and founder of Prolific Animation Studio. We are all about exploring innovation, entrepreneurship, and how to be successful. Today we have an amazing guest with us, Jamil Lahham. Hey Jamil, how are you?
Hey Kamal, how's it going, man? Good to see you finally. We made it happen.
Yeah. All right, Jamil. So please give your brief introduction to our audience so they'll know more about you.
Currently, I'm a commercial director with a long history of animation. I come from the lines of animation. I went to college in Florida. I graduated in 2008. I was one of these nerds who spend all their time in the lab, and that really paid off. After college, I landed my first job at Sony ImageWorks in Culver City, California, and my first project ever was on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It was such the perfect project for a freshly graduated student, you know, especially in animation. I don't know, for me specifically, also, I wasn't one of those people who are crazy about the realistic or overly polished animation. I love the simplicity and the graphic values that Cloudy really leaned into. So that was the perfect springboard. From that point on, my career practically just took me in all directions in terms of geography. I really followed the work wherever it was, regardless to the geography. I didn't really care where I am as long as I was doing what I really liked. So straight out after California, I was recruited to supervise the animation in a little studio that was freshly formed in the state of Louisiana. The studio was called Moonbot Studio. I mean, you can find some information about them online, but they're out of business. And luckily, the studio needed to start, since the studio was just freshly formed, it needed a piece of demo reel to show and showcase the capabilities and the artistic vision of the studio. So I ended up supervising their inaugural short film, The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmore. That's the actual title. The short film actually goes on and it wins the Oscars for the best animated short for that year, which is still to this day, you know, when it crosses my mind, I'm baffled that I would leave Los Angeles to move to Louisiana. A state is not known at all for movies or animation or any of that. Yeah, and then I ended up on an Oscar-winning short film. So that was yet another great experience.
So, Jamil, what mistakes they made since they're out of business now? What were the challenges they were facing, and what were the things they have not worked or improved? That's why they're out of business.
You know,
I want to know the insights.
it's and it's okay. I'm just thinking about how unfiltered I should go with you. And you know, I'm gonna just give you a heads up. I am very well known for my colorful language. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna give you a heads up. You can bleep if something slips, but you know, it's you know, some things are gonna slip in. But that said, I knowing what I know right now, I feel like I have a better understanding of what might have gone wrong. At that point, we were I'm talking I mean we're talking about like 15 years now, right? And so back then I was a lot younger and a lot more emotional and passionate and angry about the things that went down and how they went down. But now seeing what happened back then, like seeing it and understanding it, I feel like the major issue over there was the egos. A couple of things. A couple of things. The egos of the directors.
Okay.
Uh, that's number one. The vision, number two. Um,
And I think
and
the vision,
way and
and I think the vision is the biggest problem. Like every studio or every director they face, and that's why they run out of business or no longer in the industry. So, go on,
it
vision.
it's that and then the leaning into this
Uh huh.
this whole thing with the Oscars, you know,
Uh huh.
when you let a little statue blind you and you let it get to you, you will lose your compass. You will lose everything. Then suddenly you're a god in your own eyes, and then no one's input, no one's opinion really matters. And I feel like we really dealt with that a lot. The one thing to this to just so people understand that because you know people can watch this and go, oh, this is a bitter talk or whatever. If you actually go on and watch the acceptance speech they put out on the you know on TV on the Oscar stage, not one time did they mention the name of the studio for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, people pay millions to create
Oh.
property just so they get that 5 minutes platform so that they can actually deliver a message or say something of substance or push something. You know, it's a great PR stage. Tens of millions of eyeballs and ears are onto you, and not one time did they mention the team or the studio name. Like you really
Oh.
want to push the studio, wouldn't you? Wouldn't this
Absolutely.
be the
Hmm.
moment to say, hey, by the way, we're Moonbot Studios in Shreveport, Louisiana, a city 99% of you never heard of, but we made it happen there. Yada, yada, yada. Anything of that breath of that spirit, no. But it was more about them and how little kids from the South that you know, and it really was disheartening to see it play out. I mean, we were there. The whole team was there. We were actually watching it on the big screen. We made our own faux Oscar night. We were all dressed up in Shreveport, Louisiana, watching the directors. And not one time in my heart, I'm watching them and I'm just mouthing, just say the name, just say the name, just say the name. And not one time either one of them say it. And that to me really said a lot about where their minds and hearts are. It's about me. It's about my ego. It's about what I did, yada, 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 yada. And so to me, I feel like
Mm.
ego got in the way big time. The lack of vision, you know, they thought right after this, they can start making feature films. I, as the animation director in the studio, I knew that we were not ready. We were not ready. We didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have the pipeline. We didn't have the readiness or the space. I mean, we had a beautiful space. It wasn't a feature film space yet, you know. But they were just trying to milk that Oscar for something that it wasn't necessarily good for. Let's be honest here. The Oscars does not mean anything to animation, and it doesn't give a shit about animation. I mean, we
Absolutely, I
know.
would agree with you.
We've read all the scandals about people not watching, and they're just voting by the name of the creator or producer.
Absolutely.
So as an organization, Oscars means nothing to animation, and animation means nothing to Oscars voters.
Oscar, yeah.
And so for you to take this Oscars for best animated short and try to kind of like force it into convincing Hollywood that we can make feature, that to me was just it was just unrealistic, and it was out of touch. And so that to me, I feel like what really killed it. Obviously, there are other peripherals, personal problems and whatever. I'm not gonna talk about that, but to me, the work suffered from egocentric co-founders who, by the way, the directors and the co-founders were the same people. So like it's like talking to Donald Trump on steroids. Like, they have absolute unchecked powers. The producers can't say no. Nobody can say no. So whatever crazy idea they come up with, we just had to address it, right? Even when we, the army on the field, are telling them this, we won't be able to hit this, or we won't be able to hit this deadline or this thing. We were always, you know, patted on the back like little children, and then, we've done this before, you guys. We've done this before. We'll be fine. Like, dude, I'm dealing with the numbers.
So how many after that, you know, Oscar awards where they did not, you know, bring the name of the studio and the team and the people who were with them from day one? How many featured films they have produced in the past right after the Oscar? Were they successful? Zero. I thought 3.
Zero.
Oh,
Zero. It's and honest, like I said, the Oscars for that category specifically is really worthless. It's absolutely worthless. If you look at the track record of any animated short that won the Oscars, it didn't necessarily go anywhere, you know, unless it came from a big studio like Sony's Chub Chubs or whatever, that old, you know, if you're already a giant in the industry and you're making a short to win that category,
you're gonna get an Oscar or any award anyway.
And even if you didn't, it doesn't change anything. You know, you still got your investors, you still got everything. But for a new studio to kind of like take this as if like it's a testament of what we are capable of, they did take after they faced a lot of failures trying to land a feature, they took on a couple of commercials. I had at that point I had left, which everybody was supremely shocked. Like, Jamil, we just won an Oscar. What are you doing leaving? And to me, the writing was all over the wall. To me personally, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yes, I'm happy we did this. I will never forget this. But seeing how things are playing, it was disheartening. I didn't think it was going anywhere. So I left the studio and I took a job in New York City in commercial, which is something I always really wanted to do. Like, what Morris Lassmore was good about was the style. And I thought we could take that style into, you know, artistic commercial work. But no, they tried to force the feature. I signed off. I went to New York. They did land a couple of, I think 1 or 2 commercials that were actually very nice. I think if you look up the Scarecrow commercial by Moonbot, that's to me one of the most artistically advanced and actually thought-provoking approach to advertisement. It was super nice, super well done. And I would have leaned into that. If I were them, I'd be like, you know what? Let's focus on short format. Let's master a couple of looks, a couple of approaches, and then when we are at that mastery level, we'll see how we can apply it to feature. But no. They're all Orson Welles, and they're Orson Welles, and they want to do the next Citizen Kane. That's the trap. That's the usual trap.
So before Moonbot, as you mentioned, that at Sony Imagework, working on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, what was the experience like, a fresh grad? And what were some of the biggest lessons you have learned?
Man, that the beauty of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is that the directors. Okay, now we're going to talk about that 180 difference in the directorial vision. The directors, Chris, and if you can help me with the name, Chris, and you guys are gonna find the names. Chris Miller and whatever. Anyways, the two guys were actually coming from a writing background. They came as writers, and they were super funny writers.
Chris Miller and Phil Lord?
Phil Lord, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Chris Miller and Phil Lord, thank you so much. So they came from a writing background. Okay, so they've never done the directing gig. They've written on animated shows, so they understand the wackiness of what animation is capable of in terms of wackiness. If you actually rewatch the credits, I'm going to show you the actual 180 difference here. If you watch the credits on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, it gives me goosebumps just talking about it right now. It says in the opening credits, a film made by many people. Before any name, before anything, if you watch it, it says this is a film made by many people. These two guys were so down to earth. I've never seen a director so humbled and so down to earth and so respectful of how little they knew about the process. Every fucking
which is actually rare. Expecting this from directors, and co-founders, it's very hard, right?
It is amazing, man. Every time they walked into the animation room, which it wasn't many times, they came in a couple of times. They brought Bill Hader to introduce them to the team and whatnot. Every time they walked into a room, they actually said it verbally. Man, we feel like we don't know anything about this process. They knew what they were making in terms of fun. The film is theirs. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 is 100% Phil and Chris. That everything about it. But at the same time, it's 100% the team. They knew the writing. They knew exactly what they want to make. They just didn't know how to make it, and they just listened to us, and they allowed us to be funnier than them, better than them. We had a nice habit at Sony. We called it the gag pass. And what it is that if an animator had finished their task ahead of time, or they had a better idea than the storyboards. Mind you, the storyboards were super airtight. They were fleshed out. If an animator decided to show them like a better idea, they would see it as a gag. And if they liked it, they actually scrapped everything, and then they went with what the animator created or suggested, And that to me, when that happened, it just gives you, it just gave us such a sense of ownership over the work. Your morale, you go back to your desk, your morale is through the roof. Like you're like, yes, I had an idea, I had the opportunity to pitch it to these obviously smart people, and I was able to impress them. And now my idea ended up on it. This isn't the storyboard, this isn't this is my input onto this, and they went with it. And so that I don't know if this is if this doesn't say healthy healthy production, I don't know what does. So
So
that was real.
during the production of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, what was the most challenging sequence to bring to life and why?
I've talked about this multiple times in different meetings. That was frustrating. As much as I loved working on it, there was a lot of back and forth, unnecessary back and forth, in my opinion, unnecessary back and forth. The one thing that I've always talked about, and it should give you kind of an idea of how things were, was the unnecessarily finessing of things. I had a 23 frames shot, not even a second. And it was practically one of the guy, the Brent, I think, or whatever his name was. He was just hugging a giant scissors, and he was just going, that's it. That's the shot. That's it. 23 frames. It took me 7 days to get it approved. And they kept going, oh, let's do the head first. Let's start the take with the head, but then follow the arms. Okay, no, scrap that. Let's do the arms first and then the head. Okay, fine, scrap that. Let's do this, let's do that for a week. And then, like 5 days later, they're like, you know what? We don't like this gasp. We're going to switch it to something else. It's a gasp. It's a gasp shot. To me, like, the fact that I say this and people cannot even remember the shot says a lot about it. And it says a lot about how much attention that shot should have gotten when I was working on it. That should have been done in, 24 hours. Instead, I spent, near 50, 60 hours just to get a 23 frames pushed through the pipeline. And to me, this is a symptom in the entirety of the feature film world. There's a weird focus on details where it doesn't matter, right? It's just sometimes we're sitting around a bunch of 50-year-olds, framing through eye darts and blinks and whatnot. And I'm like, unless it's jarring and offensive visually, there's no reason for us to talk about this stuff. We need to move. It is draining for the creatives themselves. It is wasteful. It is why now AI folks are boasting, oh, I did this in 5 seconds. That was it's because we gave ourselves the gluttony of time and money for so many years that now the answer is not like better practices, but no, let's just make up a whole new technology that just does away with the creative process. And so that, to me, that was a little bit hard to go through. But again, when you look back at this stuff, you can't help but remember the bright parts. To me, it's still a very special experience, despite all the difficulties of the production.
So you have worked across like larger studios and smaller indie teams. How do you adopt your creative approach to different environments?
As an animator, you mean?
As a director animator, yes.
I think, majorly speaking, it's the actual project itself. The project itself dictates a lot about how I approach things. If I, well, it's not if, almost all projects are underfunded. Every client want the Pixar quality for the price of
Well, very
onions,
small ones. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just about it's a matter of how tight are we talking, and where can I cut, and how open-minded is the client to accept my ideas. I'm going to give you, I feel like I'm trying to beat around the bush here. I'm going to give you a very recent example because it's the most fresh and it's the most applicable to this project. I was just pitching. I pitched when you reached out to me. I was in the midst of finishing that project, but we pitched an idea for a 4 minutes public announcement short film, and it had a very tight budget. When I sat down with the executive producer at Tonic DNA, I told him, all right, let's talk numbers. And he's like, listen, man, this is the number I don't think we can do a full production for the set and whatnot. Um, and of course I'm with him and the rest of the team. I want to understand what the team also how they feel about all that. Um, so right away the executive producer offers me an option. He's like, "How do you feel about illustration projection on CG environment?" I'm like, do we have the team for that? That was all I needed to ask. Do we have the team for that? And he goes, yeah, of course. I said, done, sold. Let's do the briefing. The moment I started writing the briefing, I fleshed the hell out of that briefing. I made the case for our approach, and I used all the recent examples, like Fortitia's Arcane and all that stuff. I wanted to direct the focus more on the entertainment value of the character as opposed to the artistic direction, because I know for a fact audiences do not understand the difference between Arcane and any other Pixar, traditional Pixar. They just don't understand the difference. You can't explain it to them. And so instead of trying to sell them on something very highbrow artistic decision, I shifted the focus on the entertainment of the main character. It's very difficult for a character to capture the audience's attention if they are uninteresting or if they are boring. So I focused my attention on the development of their main character, and I told them, artistically speaking, we're going to take a very painterly direction, like so. And I showed them some examples. Sure enough, we landed a job, and we delivered a really beautiful piece of animation that was delivered on time within a very tight budget. Artistically, I mean, I can only report on what other artists told me. The artists that worked on it, they felt very finally validated, because for once in their lifetime, their art did not consist of just a sky or whatever, a concept art. Their art actually ended up on the big screen as a final set. And so the team is in a great place, morally speaking, morale speaking. The clients were over the moon, because they were looking at a piece of art practically. They were looking at a piece of art that it was made within a very tight budget. And so to shorten this answer, it's really the project and what limitations it forces on me, and then it is the tool set that I'm handed, what kind of artists I am given to work with. I was super lucky to work with super talented artists. My art director at Tonic on this project was just killing it. You could see the energy. He's like, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. Every time we added a shot, when you're doing projection, every shot means a new illustration. He goes, I don't care. I'll do it. I don't care. I'll do it. And so yes, it is the project. It is the limitation of the project. It is also the open-mindedness and the readiness of the client to take some risk every now and then. That's really what influenced.
Yeah, so Scoob brought classic characters into modern cinematic universe. How did the team balance with fresh storytelling while ensuring the character stayed true to their classic personalities?
Got it. Luckily, the Scooby-Doo project was actually directed by Tony. I forget his name, but Tony happens to be the director of a lot of Scooby-Doo productions before we did the feature film. And so he himself was a very solid Wikipedia when it comes to the humor, the type of humor of Scooby-Doo, the type of situations the gang gets into. So we didn't have any fear of offending or going off the rails there. We had the guy who's been doing it for so long. He really kept us on track. Now, in terms of design and aesthetics, we really had a very rigorous rigging and modeling process to hit. I mean, all these characters come from the 2D world. They have iconic shapes because of the limitations of that era when they were first released. You always you see three quarters. There's a Bible of how every three-quarter viewpoint looks like on every one of these characters. And so we were handed all these troves of model sheets, and through a long process of refinement, we really were able to hit that same 2D appeal and translate it into CG. This was actually one of the most difficult projects to keep the characters on model. We had almost like 3 layers of filtration. You had a character specialist. Each character had a lead animator who is specialist for that character, that they would give you inputs during the dailies. And then you had the supervising animator who also had Bill Holler. He was very particular about it. He obviously studied the model sheets and whatnot. He also had his way and his pass of finessing stuff. And then when you get to Tony and then you show it at the director level, you get another pass. So there was a very fine combing through it to get to that process. It was grueling, but I mean, it seems like it was received pretty well with the audience.
From a Scoob, did you have a favorite scene to work on, and why?
Okay, here's where the filter drops with you and me here.
Do you have a favorite scene to work on, and why?
Okay, so here's the thing about this industry. There are two kinds, in my opinion, or in my experience, not opinion, but experience. I'm willing to learn more. But there are two kinds of animators in this industry. The animator that gets their creative itch satisfied by working on, working on the project. And then there are the animators that are good enough to have the job, but their creative itch is only satisfied by their own creative endeavors. I happen to be the latter. And it's funny, over the break, I was trying to think up a very PC way to say it without really, being offensive. And that's really the best way to think about it. I never felt okay, I did feel it at the beginning when I was at Cloudy because I was fresh. I'm not trying to claim, somehow I'm super enlightened and yada yada yada. No. I was that starry-eyed animator who got their creative itch satisfied by the job. But the lure of it wore off super quickly for me, because I quickly learned how small is my role in a feature film or in a big production, and I didn't like that. And not because, again, this isn't a grandiose. It's just a personal thing. I love being able to give input and being shut down and challenged by the opinions about the artistic approach and the artistic values of the production we're doing. And so since, between it was right after Morris Lesmore and Moonbot that I suddenly decided I don't just want to be a craftsman. I want to be part of the decision making process of a production. And from that point on, everything I did from 9 to 6 was only that, 9 to 6. It does not represent me personally, and it doesn't reflect my views because I'm actually getting paid to do somebody else's work, or to bring somebody else's baby to life. And that to me never really spoke to me on any artistic and personal level. I am good at it. I am good enough to hold the job and deliver anything you want me to do. I'll figure it out, no matter how difficult the performance or the intricacy of the shot. But to say that any of them really left me with oh yeah, I have a soft spot to this shot or that sequence. Not
So,
not me.
Jamil, if I talk about direction, so are there any specific animated films or filmmakers have influenced your style or approach towards the storytelling?
Yes, I feel the best. I'm still learning myself. So to sit around here and say this person influences me, all of them influences me one way or another. But I I lean towards the sensibilities of Brad Bird on the first uh, Incredibles. To me personally, the Incredibles, the first one, is the one production that of Pixar, for instance, that I would call a film. The rest of them are just movies. His economy in shots, his attention to the dude, the guy was a here's a wonderful creator, wonderful who made Iron Giant and everything, and now he's doing this new medium CG animation, and he exhibits the best examples of working with limitations. Something I was just talking about earlier. He exhibits
Uh-huh.
the best examples of working within the limitation. Let's be honest. Incredibles was still
Hmm.
pretty early on. There were a lot of, and if you watch any of the behind the scenes on Incredibles, they almost scrapped the hair on the girl on Vi, or whatever her name was. I forget her name, but yet he figured out the ways, the best ways to
You
go.
mean you're referring to Holly Hunter?
The girl, the girl that hides away, the daughter of Mr. Incredible. I think her name was Vi.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I.
there was a conversation
Yeah.
about
Okay.
how
Uh-huh.
hair at that point in history was theoretical. They were like, "Hey, man, we may or may not be able to do hair, so you have to figure it out." Luckily, they figured it out. But that part in the behind the scenes, he was talking about working with limitations. And to me, Brad Bird really embodies the best way to approach limitations when it comes to limitations. I'm also told that a lot of my personal work reminds them of Samurai Jack, or anime this or anime that, which just tells me that I've been watching all this stuff and taking it in and indirectly pouring it into my work. So anything that I would say, the people that I respect the most: Chuck Jones, Brad Bird, and then Gendy. It's These three people have very distinct values to the art they brought to
I
animation.
would second you on this. If Brad Bird on Brad Bird, I would second you on this. And after the huge success of Incredible 2, they made a box office of $1.2 billion, and that was incredible.
It's
Absolutely. So if I talk about how does directing compare to being an animator or animation supervisor, what's the biggest mindset shift?
um so as a director, you're the guy. You are to decide how the show is ran. And having been through the difficulties of what we talked about earlier, Moonbot, and having been on the receiving end of what that egocentric attitude may cause the team, I am the complete opposite right now. I am a capital C collaborator. I see my job as a director no more than a conductor. I have the highway. I have the map. I know point A and I know point B. I am open. I am open to take any exit at any time if you tell me why taking that exit is good and how taking that exit benefits the journey.
Benefits.
That's the bottom line. Don't get me wrong. I will be tyrannical only when I need to be tyrannical. If you're giving me an idea that is not helpful to the vision, I would apologize and say, cool idea, but it's not, it's distracting. And here's why. Here's why. This is something I learned from working with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, also an ex-Pixarian. He directed Supergiant Robot Brothers with us at Real Effects, and I was his animation supervisor. He obviously had a vision of what he wants to make. He was absolutely open-minded to any idea that would push the shot into a much more entertaining direction or push the expression to a much funnier direction. But when you pitched him the wrong idea, he respectfully said no, and he followed, and that's why. And then right away, you don't feel like you're just being shut down for the sake of being shut down. And that is something I'll take with me to the grave. It's to say no because 1, 2, 3 is very, very necessary when you're working with creative people. Because in the creative realm, there is no right and wrong unless you explain why it's right and wrong. You know what I'm saying? And so that was a very helpful way to do it. So I'm a capital C collaborator all the way through, and only when I need to be a dictator, I will dictate and I will say why. I just have to follow it with why. Otherwise, I would leave my artist with a very bad taste in their mouths, you know. And so the difference is right now is I have that. I don't have to answer to anybody. I only have to justify my decisions and justify my vision. When I am an animator or an animation supervisor, I am still working. I am still at the service of somebody else's vision. I'm still in charge of raising somebody else's baby, and that's, to me, that's a big difference. And that's more what I want it to be for a while, you know that.
So coming to the last question of this conversation, advice for animators looking to transition into direction or leadership roles, what advice would you give them?
Oh my dude, this is a whole. Do you have enough time? Because I really don't care. I'm hanging out.
Go on.
You know, just I had the same question. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating for people who are trying to do that. I had the same question. I asked Mark Andrews himself. This conversation is probably 2 years ago, 2 years old. I asked him a question, and he didn't have an answer. He's like, there's no one answer, Jamil. Sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time, and somebody says, you know what, come on, why don't you take this project? It could literally be as simple as that. Or you could be working your whole entire life trying to prove yourself and never get it, you know. But whatever is the outcome, you need to know going into this endeavor is that it may or may not happen to you, and that is okay. Yeah. That is the lesson that I can tell people. It may or may not happen to you, and that is okay. But if you really want it to happen to you, I know, because I've gone through it, you will not stop. You will keep making your own short films. You will keep making your own projects. And that is really the safest. This isn't an answer. This is just This is my experience. I kept making stuff. I kept putting it out there. I'll tell you something really quick. I've been trying to bring the VR tools into my job at Real Effects, and I've been, I was kind of pushed away for a while. So I'm like, all right, screw it. I'll just use it for my own purposes, and I create this short reimagined intro of a TV show that I grew up watching in Syria, in Damascus, Syria. It's a nostalgic project. It's a baby project. I made it myself. I put it out online. Cartoon Brew gets a hold of it, and then they make a little
Mm-hmm.
posting about it. They created wrote a really nice article about it, Q&A and everything. The moment that article comes out, my people at the studio, they start coming over to me. The CEO of the company. It's like, what the fuck did you do, Jamil? What is that? Why don't you tell us about it? Go on and tell us. I mean, if this doesn't tell you the whole story, nothing will tell you anything about this story, right? I've been hired by them. I am Jamil. I am telling you, I have this new tool that I would like to bring to the place. You shot it down. And then when I took that tool and I worked on it personally on a personal project, and I got recognition of one of the biggest platforms in the animation world, now you want to talk to me about it, right? And so this is just to tell people, if you want it bad enough, you should just keep doing what you're doing. And I know if you have it in you, you will not stop making sequential storytelling. And I'm saying sequential because I don't want to just go into animation. This is live action, this is animation, this is anything that is time-based storytelling. If you have that itch, real itch, you will not give up. You will make it because it brings you happiness, and it is your job to keep doing that stuff and putting it out there and hoping for the best. It is so, to me, I'm a little jealous that I am not a woman sometimes, and here and here's why. I know, very controversial approach. Women, they dealt with the BS of our industry for a long time, and admittedly the BS still is present, and it still goes on. And their response was to form something called Women in Animation. I've only learned about what they do inside out just a couple years back, 3 years back, or something. And they created this environment where this organization is for women, by women, filmmakers, obviously, animation filmmakers. They take in projects, they pick whichever project has a promise, they take in the filmmaker themselves, give them the support, the guidance they need. This is according to them, by the way. This isn't me. I don't have any experience, like firsthand experience with them. I attended a keynote speech talk given by them, and I'm telling you, I'm reporting to you what they said and how they defined their mission. And then once they take the team in, and then they usher this project out, now this filmmaker is out there in the world with the material to show for the world, what they're capable of. And that provides a more solid and a more clear way to approach directing. Men being men and in control the whole fucking time, we don't have that. You just have to go, are you in the right place? Are you in the right room at the right place? Did you talk to the right person? Did you do the right thing that will get you, or did you get lucky? That it's very vague. And in that sense, at some point, I'm like, I wish I was a woman, and I wish I could do this, because that to me seems like a more a healthier direction to go into it, And so,
great.
The one thing I want to leave people with is that if it's real, do not stop. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it, and if it lands, and it will land, then it'll all pay off at the point.
So we're gonna end this conversation with this advice today, and we hope thank you for tuning into another episode of Prolific Perspectives. We hope you enjoyed this insightful conversation with Jamil Lahham. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, thank you.